Indian Springs. Tranquil, calm, beautiful. Words like that are used to describe one of the gems of Wakulla County, Florida. For many, the springs represent one of the various beauties that is associated with the Sunshine State. For Dr. Doran Knopf, a professor of oceanography at Florida State University, the tragedy that happened there over 30 years ago became his life's work. In 1991, Parker Turner and Bill Gavin, two experienced divers, embarked on a journey that they had been planning for over 2 years. Sitting at a depth of over 130 feet, Indian Springs presented Turner and Gavin a variety of challenges that required a plethora of experience and complex diving equipment. Bill Gavin was an experienced cave explorer and inventor who continually worked to improve diving technology. Gavin's life passion was cave mapping, and his work helped chart underwater cave systems from Tallahassee to the Gulf of Mexico. His success would spring the Woodville Karst Plain project into action to continue Gavin's oceanography work. In order to map Indian Springs, he enlisted the help of fellow Tallahassee resident Parker Turner. Parker Turner was an adventurer. Born and raised in Louisiana, Turner had no limits in his explorations. Described as funny, educated, a voracious leader, and an overall nice guy, Turner was able to engage in many dives and adventures due to his financial status. His family was rich due to their investments in the Texas oil fields, so money was never an issue. The lack of financial hardship allowed Turner to move his family to Tallahassee, where he worked with the Florida State Dive Program as a teacher in an unpaid role. A champion of safety, Turner was key in preventing diving accidents through his implementation of safety signs. By installing stop signs at dangerous points in caves, inexperienced diver deaths decreased dramatically. Not only was Turner implementing signs, he was saving lives. Turner is also credited with finding over 5 lost divers. He held close a creed. He'd rather usher out divers than pull out bodies. Turner's experience, emphasis on safety, and extensive knowledge of various Florida cave systems granted him the opportunity to pair up with Gavin for this courageous adventure into the unassuming Indian Springs. See, Indian Springs is a pool of wonder, covered by green algae and foliage. An area made for the community, the local YMCA built water slides and canoes for community usage. However, it's what lies below that piqued the interest of local divers and the Woodville Karst Plain project. Continuing their mapping work of the local area surrounding Indian Springs, it appeared that the caves underneath were the next frontier to be explored. The plan was simple. They would enter the cave at 130 feet, stay there for 45 minutes, then dive more than 300 feet into the unexplored portion of the cave for about half an hour, mapping out and taking notes of the previously uncharted passageways before making their way to the surface. Once they returned to the entrance, they would be assisted by other divers to decompress before they all ascended. As some would put it, an easy in and an easy out. Armed with their instructions, their experience, and a specialized breathing tank, it was time to take on the mysterious Indian Springs. As they made their way through walls of limestone and cold, fresh water, everything seemed to be in order. With each passing moment, the pressure of the depth for which they traveled intensified. Relying on their special tanks, Turner and Gavin would proceed with no indication of the dangers ahead. While Turner and Gavin continued with their expedition, their support divers, going along with the plan and the timeline for which Turner and Gavin were set to return, began to start their ascent by first starting their decompression. For divers to decompress, they must reduce the pressure they've experienced since their descent. If divers do not go through the process of decompression, they put themselves at risk for multiple health issues, including death. In order to avoid such a fate, divers use equipment and periodic stops in order to reduce or remove excess inert gases. An inert gas does not form chemical compounds, so it sinks into a diver's tissue. Without decompression, the gas continues to saturate into the tissue, to the point that, upon ascension, bubbles form inside the tissue, thus causing death. As the support divers decompressed, suddenly strong currents formed. kicking up silt and sand near the entrance, where they were positioned. As Turner and Gavin began their ascent towards the entrance, the silt and sand dramatically decreased their visibility to near nothing. During their exploration, Turner and Gavin could see as far as 80 feet. Now they couldn't see more than 6 inches. With no indication of where the entrance is, Turner and Gavin were lost, with no clue on how to get out. During this time, Dr. Doran Knopf was entering his 10th year at Florida State University. A cave diver himself, Knopf's work was aligned with Turner and Gavin's pursuits of oceanography. It would be this passion that made Knopf dive into the mystery of what kicked up the debris that trapped Turner and Gavin that fateful day. Knopf said that the result of the debris amounted to a mudslide underwater. The limestone ceiling of the cave's entrance came crumbling down, causing debris to mix throughout the water, prohibiting visibility, causing Turner and Gavin to be cut off from their support team. Frantically searching for salvation, time and air were running out. Turner and Gavin had about 105 minutes of air when they began their dive, and at this point they had spent 70 minutes underwater. With half an hour left of breathable oxygen, Turner and Gavin would need to rely on their training to find their way out. However, there was a saving grace in their bleak reality. Upon entering the cave, the dive team placed an arrow marker about 500 feet from the entrance. Finding that would save the duo. When Dr. Doran Knopf began his investigation into what caused such a collapse, he would be tasked with answering a question that had never been answered up to that point. What could have caused such a collapse? Up to that point, there hadn't been an incident like that in recorded diving history, at least not in the state of Florida. In fact, this was such a mind-boggling situation that it took 20 years to discover the collapse's root cause. Knopf looked at the entire picture, and it starts with Turner and Gavin's support dive team. That team was spearheaded by Lamar English and George Irvine. As we recall, before the cave collapsed, they were in the process of decompression. From the moment the cave collapsed, English had an inkling in what caused such an event. English himself was an experienced diver and engineer for the National High Magnetic Field Laboratory. He claims that during his and Irvine's extended time in the entrance of the cave, Irvine produced bubbles that English claims changed the buoyancy of the water, thus causing the cave-in. Knopf backs this claim by stating, when rocks are in water, they weigh less than on land because of the buoyancy of the water. If the water surrounding the rocks has bubbles, the buoyancy decreases dramatically and the weight of the rocks increase. That's why they fall. What makes this so unique is that there isn't a record of this ever occurring before. To prove this occurrence, Knopf and his team at Florida State recreated the conditions that occurred in 1991. According to Florida State University's Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Institute, researchers created a circular glass structure that they filled with an orange liquid. At the top of the structure, the team attached a strong magnet and let a metal ball hang from that magnet into the fluid. To start the experiment, they pushed air through a line into the structure. As bubbles started moving to the top, the ball began to wobble. After a few seconds, it plunked to the bottom of the glass, illustrating how sediment or limestone could have done the same in a cave. Back in 1991, English and Irvine experienced this in real time. With no knowledge on how to deal with a situation like this, they made decisions based on what they would later say that they regret. As the cave collapsed, English and Irvine had a choice: start digging and create a hole for Turner and Gavin, or return to the surface to get more help. Upon seeing the amount of limestone that blocked the entrance, English and Irvine took the latter, a decision English believes was wrong. However, with no experience in a situation like this and the prospect of being underwater, there was no right answer at the time. Yet for Turner and Gavin, they were still trapped below. Air continued to run out and the entrance was blocked. However, the duo were granted a reprieve. That once so distant arrow marker came into sight, putting them at 500 feet from the entrance. As they made their way to the perceived entrance, their limited visibility turned into nothing. With no further indicators available, it seemed as if all hope was lost. The only thing left to do was search for the flow of water, only associated with the entrance of the cave. When air was at an all-time low, Gavin found a breakthrough. Following the flow of water, Gavin found what he believed to be was the opening. This was further confirmed by finding the permanent line for which gave the divers an opportunity to get out. Discombobulated and confused by his environment, Gavin went back into the deeper part of the cave. He returned to the arrow marker to confirm they were heading in the right direction. After this, Gavin returned to Turner. Yet their prior issues had not resolved themselves. They were still trapped, still unable to create an opening, and they were still running out of air. They would then try to retrieve the buried line to no avail. Communicating through Slate, Turner messaged Gavin a question he could not readily answer. What do we do? Gavin, the man who helped chart cave systems from Tallahassee to the Gulf of Mexico, was at a loss. Recognizing the gravity of their situation, he responded, "Hold on, I'll go look," before going back towards their gas bottles. Luckily, he found what he was looking for, a bottle of oxygen, but near empty. When Gavin returned to Turner's last location, Turner was no longer there. Gavin alone took one last stab at finding an opening. Once again, Gavin did this with no visibility. Frantically searching the water, Gavin would find another line that for some unknown reason was attached to the permanent line. That line was his way out. Gavin made his way to what he believed was the opening, hoping Turner would make it out, somehow. With the debris, Gavin would struggle to find a way through, constantly having to untangle himself from his surroundings. Peeking through a gap and holding on to the line, Gavin continued to make his way, now nearly without air. As he continued, the possibility that Turner made it out this way started to become a reality. What also became a reality is that Gavin was now out of air and had to hold his breath. With no oxygen and still needing to exert a massive amount of effort to make it out, his situation seemed bleak. Through sheer will and a little luck, there was an opening at the end of the permanent line. An opening neither English nor Irvine could have seen. The opening that English believes he could have made bigger. But Gavin got out, reached the decompression bottles, and was gifted fresh air. Gavin made it, and after he decompressed, he made it to the surface. He met English, Irvine, and the team. He didn't meet Turner. November 17th, 1991. The day Parker Turner entered the caves under Indian Springs. It would also be his last day on Earth. Turner never made it out. He ran out of oxygen and drowned. Being briefed on the situation, Gavin's worst fear came true. The team would return to Indian Springs the next day, where visibility increased from 6 inches to 10 feet. They would recover the body of the man who saved the lives of others. We don't know the exact details of Turner's final moments, but after research and discussion, Gavin believes that when he was able to get more oxygen from the gas tanks, Turner had run out of air. He attempted to find the entrance. He would. The debris he kicked up likely created the opening for Gavin to eventually squeeze through. However, with the lack of air and the energy spent, Turner died 30 feet away from the decompression tanks that saved Gavin's life. A few critical decisions decided the fate of these two men, a fate that could have easily been switched. In the aftermath, the grief that consumed Gavin was plentiful. Some in the diving community blamed Irvine for Turner's death. Some blamed an explosion that never happened, and some thought it was the equipment bumping into the walls of the entrance of the cave that caused Turner's demise. It wasn't until Doran Knopf's scientific confirmation that Irvine was cleared. Gavin and English never blamed Irvine. It was just a freak accident caused by not knowing the effects of bubbles and buoyancy. Turner was 39 years old when he passed. His family dealing with their loss, returned to Turner's home state of Texas. Gavin, English, and other members of the Woodsville Karst Plane Project remain friends to this day. Dr. Doran Knopf continued his work until 2016. Helping close the story of Indian Springs, Knopf himself recognized the dangers of cave diving and also attributed Turner's death to freak circumstances. Knopf retired in 2016 and held the position of emeritus professor until he passed away on August 1, 2022. His paper on Indian Springs, published in 2010, is available to be read online. Knopf's efforts bring closure to a challenging period in the history of the Indian Springs. Meanwhile, Turner, Gavin, English, Irvine, and their peers have played a pivotal role in mapping Florida cave systems, enhancing diver safety, and revolutionizing global diving equipment and strategies. Unfortunately, the most impactful lessons often stem from the loss of others. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so we can continue to bring these stories to you each and every week. If you have any video suggestions, leave a comment down below. Until next time.